Hi, Peter.
Hi, Linda. Hi, everybody.
So for those of you in the Gampa, when Venerable Amy gets here, we'll stand, and yesterday we were going to wait until she prostrated and sat down, and then we were going to prostrate, but she invited us to prostrate with her. So if she does that again today, we'll just prostrate with her if she invites us to do so. Otherwise, we'll wait until she sits down and then we'll prostrate. It's a little bit different when Geshe Gelik is here. Hi, Carmen. Good morning. Good to see you. Hi, Peter. Venerable Amy has arrived.
So we didn't all die last night, right? Wonderful, I'm so happy. that was very cute. Thank you for coming. So if you'd like to make frustrations we normally do before we start, we can do together. Oh, I know, good. Lovely to see you. Good to see some old friends. So I was hoping you'd come.
Yeah, I'm sorry about last night.
No, no. Not at all. I'm sorry I haven't been able to, we always talked about me coming to the prison,
Yeah,
and I just ended up not, it hasn't happened yet. So.
yeah. We're gonna get some changes and stuff like that. So maybe we can discuss maybe about 3 or 4 months ahead of time.
Yeah.
If you know, and then I can go and get the paperwork done. I can do that. Just come in and get that.
Right, because I know you need to do the paperwork and all that. So
Yeah.
that would be great to get.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you so much. Well, I hope to get some time with some of you guys. Thank you.
The guys really want to see you. I told them about you so many times.
I would love to do that. I'm so sorry it hasn't happened yet. And then COVID came and it must have been so hard on that population. I can't even imagine.
Because stuff happens and it's going to happen.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Stuff's always happening, right?
That's right. I've seen it on a bumper sticker somewhere.
I think it's called samsara. I think it's called samsara.
Oh, that samsara thing?
I mean, things always happening.
Yes, please sit down. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you for these notes. They're so helpful. Okay, wonderful. Oh, isn't this wonderful? Okay. Okay, so great. Do I have this on right? I think so. Yeah, great. So there's a note here, and I was going to mention this book. This is on my list, and they're offering copies of Rinpoche's death book, I'll call it, but there's more about that, at no cost to students in this workshop, in this program, while they last, on the table beside the door at the rear.
And we have run out already.
Oh,
So for those of you who have yours, that's great. If you have one at home, don't take one from here. Let someone else have it.
so I'm just going to show you this book. Okay, now the title is unusual. Title's a bit unusual. How to Enjoy Death. People say, what? So anyway, this book is I'm going to say it's had many incarnations, okay? Many, many incarnations. I have like passed ones of the, and it evolved. So this is the latest version. It's all very nicely done with a gold kind of thing and a nice red, and it has tags in there so you can tag certain things. And the main thing I would say, and it says, preparing to meet life's final challenge without fear. That's what we want. We want to come into the death process without fear, which I'm hoping some of the info I can give you today and tomorrow will help to dispel some of the fear, mostly by taking control of our minds. That's what we're going to try to do. But what I would say in our tradition, this is kind of our death Bible. And to show those of you online, it's, yeah, you can see online.
Hello? Okay. I just wanted to let people know that there's a PDF on Robina Corton's website that is the original that was edited from.
Okay.
Because she edited it. And it's, none of the content is different, just the layout is a little bit different. And you can just download it for free. So I just wanted to let people know that,
Great. Thank you.
If you don't have access to that, or you don't have the $35 or $40 for it, that is a free substitute.
Great.
And portable because it's electronic.
Yes, because a lot of people want electronic things. But what I want to say also, thank you so much, my dear, is the helpful thing with this, if you're in this tradition, people come to me all the time and say, so my uncle's dying, my mother's dying, what do I do, what do I do, what do I do? They've been at death classes before, so they're maybe not absorbing enough from the class. And what happens is, when the death process is coming, and it's a loved one, or you've been caregiving somebody, there's a bit of a shock and alarm around it. Like suddenly they seem to be actively dying, or the doctor just told us there's nothing more they can do, the chemo's not working, his heart's not happening, and then a lot of emergency happens. So again, you want to slowly get familiar with these processes, what's in here before that time. Okay, and it gives you everything to think about, every motivation, every prayer you need is in here. Okay, and there's different versions of them. So it makes it easier where, for me, I can just grab the book if I'm headed to somebody's house because they're dying. I have a lot of it on my phone, actually. So I keep these books on my phone because I travel a lot. So I just want to have it accessible. Boom, there it is. And it's not like you have to do everything, but you can get familiar. And it's got some really cool stuff in here that, for instance, this is, I think, the Namgelma. So it's got, inserts of things you can put on the body as the person's lying there. And there's other things. So the more recent thing we just got, and I'll talk more about these materials around it later, is there's blankets, death blankets. Now, I don't know what to call them. I call them death blankets. But there's small, medium, and large. You can order sets. I'm not kidding. So some people know, some of you will say, oh, I'm not going to do that. That's weird. My family will think it's weird. But what you do is you can, as the body's lying there, whether they're passing, they've just passed, you can put these on the body, these mantras. And our belief system is, this is a big blessing. This is just part of our ritual. So we have a lot of rituals in our different traditions, right? And some of you're familiar with what the Catholics do, and some of us have been to Jewish Shivas, and what Hindus do, and cremation versus burial versus, everybody has a different tradition of what they like to do. And so this is what the Buddhists do. So on April 11th, I'm actually giving a talk at an interfaith group in the Pennsylvania area, because I'm the only Buddhist in that group, and they've had all the death traditions. And so they're kind of like, so what do you guys do? Can we, So that's a neat thing to kind of explain, where they've been through all the other traditions of how they do it. And all those traditions are really rich, what people do. So, so this book has everything, and you can look through where, blessing, what to think about, what the visions are, which we're going to talk about today. And it has Dharma in there, of course. And then it's got prayers of what you can read. So, and again, you don't need to be any great practitioner. You sit down, you like a certain prayer, and then you just start reading that. You can do it next to the body. You can do it at home if the body is in a caretaker's. You don't need to be with the body. You can visualize. You can also do things quietly, privately, by somebody's bedside when they're in the hospital passing away, like Tonglen meditation, and nobody needs to know you're doing anything. You're just sitting there. You're just doing it through visualization, which we will be doing today to familiarize you with some of those prayers, how to, what to do. So when people do ask me initially, this is the basic stuff you want to do. And then we're going to get into the class. But the basic stuff is, the first thing I'd advise people to do is to do the Medicine Buddha Puja. Medicine Buddha Puja, okay? And that one, they've changed it a little bit in here. But there is a downloadable booklet from FPMT for free, or you can, I always say make an offering. It's really online, you can download it. Medicine Buddha Puja, and that puja is, so here it says Medicine Buddha Practice 285, and I just want to look at this one, because the last one I saw was a little bit different, but this one's totally fine. So it gives you a simple version. So if you're kind of like, I don't have much time, like with my grandmother, she had passed away, my mother wanted to leave, we didn't have much time, and I just said, can I have a little moment, can I have a half an hour? So this, they give you a simple version, and then they give you a longer version. How to think, right in these pages, you visualize, you read whatever it says. Yeah, this is very nice. And then what you also do is some centers once a month around the full moon do a Medicine Buddha puja or practice. And basically when my mother was in the hospital, it was about 7 months, she was in a coma. So I was there most every day in between of, so what I would do is I would do the Medicine Buddha puja I had, which is 45 minutes long for me to recite in English. Okay, you don't need to be any great scholar to do it. Okay, but it's nice to get a little explanation if you come to the center. Do you do it here monthly?
We do. Since COVID, we've done it online.
Okay,
but
online,
it's once a month.
But you get a little explanation of how to visualize and how to do it is really helpful. And then if not, you just read. It's all the Medicine Buddhas. There's seven of them in Shakyamuni Buddha. You read, you visualize light rays coming down through the person's crown you're praying for, whether they're dying, whether they're sick, whether they've just passed away, whether you're in your 49-day period of them passing away. I'm going to talk about that. And so that's the first thing that I always advise people to do, right? The minimum is to recite Medicine Buddha mantras. That's in here as well. Recite those mantras with visualization. There's a long mantra, there's a short mantra. Okay. And then Medicine Buddha Puja, and then the minimum would be dedication prayers to recite the King of Prayers. It's a longer dedication prayer, it's in here as well. So that's kind of the minimum I would do. But then there's other prayers you may want to do. The blankets are another level. People cut out mantras, print out mantras, put it on the body. Some people have a looping tape running in the room with a mantra out loud the person can hear. For practitioners, serious practitioners that live in a community, live around a Buddhist community, Rinpoche would advise us to do certain more in-depth practices around them while they're passing away. So I'm going to talk more about that and leaving your instructions for people, which Venerable Khandro is going to follow up with her Dharma will, how you get the Dharma will going.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, on the information about what I'm going to mumble through is a set of resources, including copies of the mantra that is placed on the body at the time of death.
Wonderful, great.
And a chart of the dissolution, the whole thing.
Great.
And all permutations of Lama Zopa talking about it, all five.
That's great. It's good to just direct
right.
people simply
So,
because...
There's in the books, and so there's about 10 resources on that.
Okay.
And a lot of it just free to download.
Yeah.
So...
And what the FPMT website, when you go into education and different resources, it has some of the most extensive resources on death and dying. That's how important it is. So it gives you some idea of the weight of the, sorry, I was just, it's coming. Oh, then no worries. Yeah, no. So I just wanted to explain, so as a result of having this extensive level of resources, that's how important the death, preparing yourself for death. That's what our Dharma practice is. So I don't mean to sound morbid, like all we're doing is getting ready for death, like that. But it's a lot of it, because death offers you an opportunity when this is done, so you don't have to be involved in the whole gross level of your life. I don't mean gross disgusting, I mean that like all the stuff, paying the bills and dealing with the taxes and the thing with this and my kids, and all that is finishing. If you're having a slow death or a death from a slow disease, old age, all that stuff, and you see people that are older, right? You know people that are old, right? And there's some of the stuff, they don't care anymore, right? They're kind of like, I can't be bothered, right? So that's what happens. All that stuff starts to go away. And then you're left in your death experience, it's yours alone. Everything's becoming more subtle. So if you are used to now dealing with your more subtle consciousness, which is what we do in meditation, what we can access in meditation with a wonderful support of Lamrim training, Lamrim study, okay, following the advice of an authentic teacher. There's all these components. Slowly you put it together, keep it simple, right? Then you're going to be sailing out in your death. You're going to be like, okay, I'm ready. I remember the story of a guy years ago. Many people I've heard different things like this, that he got his teacher, he was passing away, could hardly speak, like was really in the last phases of this life, got the teacher on the phone, and he wanted to do Tonglen meditation. He got a little confused. People get confused in the end. It's very normal. Got confused, just wanted to have that last conversation with the teacher, and was saying, okay, so what am I supposed to think about again? Like, what do I visualization? We will do that meditation in here. And then the teacher just explained, and then he was like, okay, got it, okay. And then with that focus, that's where he was when he was dying. It's a great space to die in. Great space to die in, like that. So what you want to do is, if you can familiarize yourself enough now with practices that are coming up for you readily when you're driving, when you're making dinner, you know, that's what's coming up into your mind rather than something else. That's what's going to be there for you at the death time. You know, you can kind of look at your dreams now, the subtle mind, what comes up in your dreams, what are you thinking about? So that's really why this is a preparation for you to use that subtle consciousness to meditate on emptiness, to actualize higher states of realization. So a lot of this is a preparation for death, but meaning it's about creating meaningful life that prepares you to evolve more and more and more and more fully in every lifetime. Okay. Make sense? Everybody with me? Okay, and if it's something related to what I just said, why don't we just do the question?
Andre, hang on.
If it's someone that you know, but far away, what can we do for that person? Could be your child, it could be, whoever.
If they've died or they're dying?
Both.
Yep, it's the same kind of thing. I mean, what I would do is it depends on your relationship with the person. Are they Buddhist? Are they non-Buddhist? You know, you don't start introducing Buddhist principles and things to somebody that's not interested. You know, when I do hospice work, it's sometimes with all faiths. So if somebody's Christian, I'm not going to come in and say, here's how you got to think about the Buddha. I've set up Christian altars for people. They wanted a picture of Jesus. Mary, perfect. That's what they wanted. That was their point of reference. That's what they were familiar with. Mostly if you keep them peaceful. But again, away from them, I can do my medicine Buddha practice, visualizing them. Okay. They don't even need to know. I can do Tonglen practice, that meditation, visualizing them.
King of prayers, everything.
King of prayers, all of that I do for people anywhere in the world. Yeah, you don't need to be near them. And you don't need to, I don't have to tell them about it if they're not interested in it. Jokingly, it's not really a joke, but I have a long dedication list of all these people that are struggling health-wise now, and then, the war in Ukraine and Gaza, and you have your dedication list. So I have a long list, and then I have all the people that are sick. And so at one point I was telling my sister, who's not really a Buddhist, but at one point I said, oh, I'll put him on my dedication list. And she said, I don't want him there because those people die that are on your list. And I'm like, well, they died because they're really ill. But she was really funny. She's like, I don't think I want the name on your list because I saw those people that died on your list. But again, so you can do stuff like that and dedicate and keep your list. And keep a list current, like centers do it, but they sometimes don't update the list. So for instance, if you know somebody died, we have a tradition of 49 days that you are in an in-between state, Buddhist belief, until you take a rebirth. So what I tend to do on my list is I record the date they died, and then 49 days later, I actually remove them from the list. So I keep my list a little bit more current. It's not like you can't pray for everybody, but I'd prefer to think about people that have just died or people, things like that. Keep it a little bit more active. Is that helpful? Yeah. Yes.
So, okay. So if you realize someone has passed away and you didn't find out about it until after the 49-day period, I'm kind of lost as to what to do.
You can still do the same practices. Yeah, no problem at all. Absolutely. Yeah, even for their future lives, whatever, you can still do the same practices. Yeah. Because sometimes we don't find out, right away like that. Okay, so we're going to begin again with that refuge verse. Let's see if I can find it.
Page 111.
111, thank you. And again, I really want you to think about in the course of this topic, death and rebirth, death and dying, when you think of that topic, what kind of comes up in your heart, in your mind? What do you think is going to best serve you and help you and support you? And what do you think best keeps you from experiencing more suffering in your life? And what do you know of Buddha, Dharma, Sangha? What have you explored of their qualities? That you think could best support as opposed to your other coping mechanisms when you get into trouble, when you're having a difficult time? Think of the Buddha in the space in front of us, or think of any particular teacher you have. You could place them at the Buddha's heart. You could just think of the Buddha in front of you, or any image of the Buddha that you really like. This omniscient being contains Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. All are one in this being, in this omniscient mind. Just take for a moment, imagining they're really there in the space in front of you. Just in your mind, ask them for some help you need right now. We'll recite this 4-line refuge and bodhicitta 3 times. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Are they growing the tea leaves? Sorry. Sorry. Here she comes. Thank you. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to take you away for so long. What's that? Thank you. Thank you so much. I didn't mean for you to go out and buy. Did you have the tea here? Or? Here it is. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Oops. I thought it was going to be simple, so thank you. Thank you.
In the cubby.
Oh. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so let's sit for a moment. Let me just ask you before we start, what do you remember from last night, those of you that were here? Okay, 9-point death meditation. What are the 3 roots? 3 main headings? Okay. Death is certain. What are the 3 reasonings? Number 1. Everybody dies. Number 2. Yep. Number 3. There's not a lot of time to formally practice Dharma. Okay, so death is certain. Everybody dies. Time is running out. We're another Saturday morning closer to death. Did you do that exercise last night? Try that? So Jill sent me a message, a text about today, something about today, and she's like, and this is the last text I'll send you. And I was a little bit like, what? She was like, this could be my last text, right? I'm another text closer to death. Did you ever think of that? And then there's very little time for us to practice Dharma. Those are the 3 reasonings, and lead us to a resolution. Sorry, I can't hear you, but yeah, go ahead. I'm going to practice. I'm going to get a practice happening. The second root, time of death is uncertain. 3 reasonings. Number 1. Unknown life. We live in a world system with an unset lifespan. Thank you. Number 2. Many more things can kill us than are keeping us alive. Number 3. Body's fragile. Thank you. And this leads to a resolution. I'm going to practice now is the key. It has to happen now. I'm running out of time. Okay. 3rd heading, the only thing that benefits us at the death time is our Dharma practice. First reasoning. What doesn't help you? Possessions. Number 2. Friends and family. Number 3. Body doesn't help. So I'm going to practice. I'm going to practice now. I'm going to practice well as the resolution from that. Okay? Let's meditate on this. Let's reflect a little bit. We'll go through some of the points. So first you want to have a good intellectual understanding. You can rotate through those roots. You know them inside and out. And then you want to support it with scriptural references, different things you've seen, you've heard in the class, you heard a student say, your own life experience. Like that. And then you want to meditate on it. Let it come to a deeper level. So in these meditations, anytime you get a gripping, kind of in a juicy place in your heart, excuse me, and you feel suddenly this, I'm going to die, then you want to hold your concentration on that to deepen it. So let go of the analyzing. Even if I'm talking, just Hold the concentration there. To deepen that experience, when it fades, then you go back and analyze more quickly to come back to that experience. That's how we combine analytical meditation with placement or stabilizing meditation, shine, calm abiding. That's how we combine those two main meditations that we do. Thank you. Okay, let's sit comfortably. Just allow your mind to settle on the breath for a moment. So please reflect. Under death is certain, everybody dies. Everybody dies. As you reflect on just those words, those two words, let it fill your being. Everybody dies. Think in the back of your mind, I am definitely going to die. I am definitely going to die. You breathe in, you breathe out. There is no power in the universe that can stop death from coming to you. There is no money that can buy it off. You cannot bribe death. And reflect, the most powerful people on the planet have not found a way to escape death. And reflect on all these powerful people and what powers they had. Were they able to escape death? And again, in the back of your mind, think, I am definitely going to die. I am definitely going to die. Think of the most creative beings on the planet. Mozart, John Lennon, Kurt Cobain, incredible actors, actresses. comedians, artists, all have died, have not figured out a creative solution for death. Think of the smartest people on the planet, geniuses, Einstein, Stephen Hawking. People like that didn't figure out a way out of death. So how do you think you are going to escape it if they didn't? And reflect again. I am definitely going to die. I am definitely going to die. What about great spiritual people on the planet? Mother Teresa? Jesus? Great Sufi saints? Jewish prophets? Christian martyrs? Deeply spiritual people. All the popes who have died. They didn't sort away. Even the Buddha died. Even the Buddha died. So how is it that you think you are immune from this situation? Everybody dies, including you. Reflect again. I am definitely going to die. And think about how time is fleeting. Every second passing now, every minute, another day gone. We're another Saturday closer to death. Another Buddhist class closer to death. Just think, I'm another meditation closer to death. Another inhalation, another exhalation closer to death. Feel the fleeting nature of time passing by you, bringing you closer and closer to this big transition. This is a natural process. It happens to everyone. And feel the fleeting nature as if you got dropped out of a plane without a parachute. This is your life speeding by you. Look at all the scenes, all the dramas, all the interactions, all the endeavors streaming by so fast. The ground is coming. Our imminent death is approaching. And as we get closer to the ground, faster and faster it feels. How much time are you actually spending practicing Dharma? How many opportunities are you using to work with your mind, to transform negativity in your mind? Just assess a normal day for you. How much time are you spending doing that? And back in a corner of your mind, reflect, I am definitely going to die. There's no power that will stop that from happening. I am definitely going to die. So can you make a resolution from here? And I'd like you to really think of something specific in your daily life. Can you make a small, realistic adjustment to get more time for Dharma practice, to get your mind ready? Think about what you're going to do right now. What adjustment are you going to make? Starting Monday, this is your new path. Make it realistic. May any benefit from this meditation help us to really wake ourselves up and wake up our practices. To create them more beneficially, more consistently, so they'll help us move along that path to full enlightenment so we can benefit all living beings. Please relax. So when you meditate on those points of the Lam Rim, it's like that. You could take one point at a time, 15, 20 minutes a day, but it has to be consistent for you to have uncontrived realizations of the Lam Rim. You have to do it regularly to really have an effect, to have a better effect like that. But it's really powerful for your mind, and it shifts your life into a better place. Less wasting time, more meaning with what you're doing. It's really worth it. And then the more you read, you add components that will best benefit you in the meditations. Other life experiences, you add it in, you roll it in. Okay? But they're designed, these Lam Rim meditations. And it's something that's really hard for Westerners. People get bored, they go, okay, everybody dies, I got it. Okay? But we don't have it here. So it's really effective to take like a day a weekend, plan a day a month where I'm going to really go into some Lam Rim meditations. Have anybody got practices from Lama Zopa Rinpoche, life practices? Anybody ask Rinpoche for that and get life practices? Nobody in here. Okay. You missed it, sorry. But what I meant was, used to be able to email and you'd get, Rinpoche had a whole, what I'd say now, it used to be you'd scribble stuff down, but now he got it all on a regular thing, motivations and what Lam Rim meditation. He checks just for you. He would do a mode just for you, a divination, to check what you should meditate on and giving specific instructions. Really, really useful. It's okay, you can do it on your own. It'll make Rinpoche so happy, right? And it's really a lifetime practice. And he'd give you preliminary practices you can do, your meditational deity for highest yoga tantra when you're ready. It was a whole package some people got. So it would have specific how you meditate on the Lam Rim, what you do. It's in some of the Lam Rim books like that. It's really useful. But it's really hard for Westerners because we're so engaged in other things. It's so useful if you can do. So sometimes there's centers around the world that will hold retreats like this, so that you can get a sense in a retreat mode. I just led one at Vajrapani Institute, what we called Kopan West. So Kopan Monastery has these courses every month. My first course was a 10-day course like that some years ago at Kopan. But some of the centers in the West hold those because people can't go over to Asia. It's expensive, it's far away. So you can go, Vajrapani Institute has a couple of a year like that. Your center could host one as well, if you'd like that. And it's nice in a retreat mode where you're really living there for 9 or 10 days or a week, and you're just going through the teachings to understand what you're supposed to think about, and then you do meditations on it. And it's really nice, so you learn a little bit of how to integrate that. It starts to shift your life. It can be really, really useful. So again, if you're interested, Dharamsala, India in November, I'm leading, I think, a 10-day one there. So not just the death one, but before that, there's an intro course that people can do. It'll take you right through all those things. Okay. So what I want to ask you is, what do you think about reincarnation? Not everybody buys into it. What do you think about reincarnation in general? Any thoughts?
If you are in
Sound-
here, just raise your hand.
Yeah,
and
sounds
Susie
better
will
than
run the
hell.
microphone. I think there's
Sounds
one back
better
there
than
with
hell.
Chris.
Certainly does, doesn't it? What do you think about hell? What do you think about hell realms in general? I just want to get some sense of. Andre. And let me first ask this. What's your name? Larry. Larry, what do you think of the when you said hell? What do you think? I mean, have you studied any of the Buddhist hell realms? And Buddhism has hell realms. This is where I'm going to lose all the Catholics. Sorry. Hang in there with us. Okay. And sorry, I want to also check with you guys online. I don't want to forget you guys. Let me see who's here. Wonderful to see you. Great. Elizabeth, you going to put your camera on? Am I going to get to see you? I know she's oh, there she is. Hey, nice to see you. Please.
I came from the Catholic tradition, so hellfire and brimstone, 9 circles, all that stuff.
As I'm sure many people in here, it came from a Catholic background. It's quite common. So, and the Buddhist approach to it, have you studied any of that, of the lower realms? We do have hell realms.
Not mostly in passing.
Okay, in passing. So I just want to explain to the Catholics in here why the Buddhist hell realms are better. Okay? Okay? Because ours are not forever. Ours are temporary. And we have a bigger variety of hell realms as well. We have freezing cold hells. You don't have to just burn in hell. You can freeze so your body splits open. Okay? I mean, it is vast, these lower realms, what they talk about in Buddhism. My first class, I read a little bit about them. I heard the next session was going to be about the lower realms of existence, and I skipped that session. I had no interest whatsoever. I don't come from a Catholic background, but I was like, I don't want to hear about people suffering. Okay, but we do have a variety of hell realms. They are temporary. You don't go to hell forever in Buddhism. You go to hell based on the conditions you created in your mind that got you into hell. What gets you into hell? Sadistic killing gets you into hell. It's your actions that get you into hell. Nobody's doing it to you in Buddhism. It's you and your mind, okay? And when you burn up and purify the conditions, the causes that got you into hell, you move out of hell and you move into something better and better and better. If you have those causes and conditions in your mind, that you're creating virtue. That's why we want to create virtue. We want to do good stuff. We want to think good thoughts. We want to say good things. That's how we evolve more fully and get happier and happier and happier. But it's not just, on the Mahayana path, it's not just about our own happiness, but that happiness, that joy, is a buoyant cushion for me to practice. Okay, with my eyes open and understanding, understanding the nature of my own mind, how it's moving along. Okay, and then I continue to add practices, add behavioral habits that I'm constructing and getting those habituated in my mind, better and better and better responses, activities like that eventually get me to become a Buddha. As a Buddha, I can benefit all living beings. So our big thing is I'm not just doing it for myself, I want to benefit all living beings. This is a perfect cup of tea. Thank you.
The Protestant view of hell is not much better than Catholic.
Okay, Protestant view of hell as well.
It's a scary place.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so we get scared about death because we've heard about these things, and what if we go there?
Right.
And Catholic hell, my understanding is it's forever. You're there forever.
Protestant too.
That is pretty bleak, let me tell you. I can understand why people leave that and go, I can't deal with that. But so the thing is, you need to investigate. I'll ask you to please investigate everything I'm saying. Don't just, sign up, she's got a bald head, great, I'm for that. Please be discerning about any path you're on, any path. You don't need to be a Buddhist to be happy. Check up thoroughly, and you have to investigate. So in Catholicism, think about, I thought about this a lot in the religion I was raised in. I believed in God and all these things, and God, and think about the God I was taught was omnipotent. Is that the God in Catholicism? All powerful, all powerful. So I didn't understand. Somebody's all powerful, then why does a 2-year-old child die of leukemia? You're all powerful? Can't you sort that if you're all powerful? But these are things I thought, it was my own trajectory. I was kind of checking. I'm like, God the Creator. So that God the Creator is creating all of this reality for me. I don't have a lot to do with it, but I'm participating in it, right? But I don't have a lot to do with it. So these are things I thought about, creating everything for me. But what happens is there's some really people on the planet that I would identify that didn't seem to be very good people. Right? We all know people like that, right? And somehow they seem to have all this glory in life, all this ease, and then I met some incredibly good-hearted people that just seemed to always be struggling, suffering, cancer plagued through their families, horrible suffering and tragedies, and it's like, why? She's never done anything to hurt anybody. So that didn't really make sense to me. Where was that? So then I started looking at, where does your suffering come from? I saw suffering in my own family, my own life, and this was the Buddhist trajectory. I'm not a Buddha, but he kind of saw suffering for the first time, got a dose of that, looked at that, and was alarmed. We should be alarmed by our suffering. We get alarmed at Gaza, something extreme like that. There's other suffering and just ordinary stuff that is not okay. I don't like to see people suffering. I don't like to suffer myself, but I don't really like to see, I know some of you, some people online. I know right now, somebody online has a close family member who's really struggling with cancer right now. So just so difficult. I just went to 2 funerals in the last 2 weeks like that, and you see the family struggling. A friend of mine right now, her husband is not managing, old age heart disease. Just there's not much they can do. At that point, you try. So this is life. So please, Andre, please continue.
God, so much you just said just really just, yeah, so much you said just really, but.
Oh, and I want to just let people know we are going to take a break in this session. We end at 12:30, but we will have a break so you can go to the bathroom, and we'll take a break pretty soon.
If I may, I'd like to say a couple of things.
Please.
One is what you're talking about. I remember once I used to be a Christian missionary, and I remember I went to this person's house, and this person said, "Come, I want you to come." Took me to the back room, the baby's room. The baby showed me the baby. The baby had a hole in its chest, and he said, "Where's the God? How do you answer this?" As a Christian, I had no answer. I had no answer. I have an answer now because I understand karma. But then I had no answer. I couldn't say anything, and so that just really, I remember that even today. It makes me cry when I think about it.
Yeah.
You asked about reincarnation, what it means to us. For me, it means I get another opportunity. I get another opportunity. To me, it's like the movie Groundhog Day, right? Perpetual Groundhog Day. I keep getting another opportunity to get it right until I finally get it right. And I'm so grateful and so appreciative of that, because I'm not going to get it in one lifetime. As much as I would like to, I just don't believe that. I know they say some people can become Buddha and just, and I know that's possible. I don't see it in my cards. So,
Right.
So I'm so grateful for that understanding of reincarnation and karma, because now I understand why I suffer, others suffer, and now I understand, and I'm learning through reincarnation how to alleviate that for myself and to help others as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, wonderful. It's really interesting, and it's nice to hear that we get another chance. Buddhism says you get, and you have a continuum of consciousness is what Buddhism says. Now, not everybody believes in reincarnation. I didn't when I came to Buddhism. I certainly wasn't sure. It's a continuum of consciousness and this is I'm teaching according to Tibetan Buddhist philosophy. We talk about a continuum of mind, a mind that has no beginning or end. How is it possible? Because we're linear thinkers. So we've got this class today starts at 10 a.m. It has an ending point. It has, the week often starts for most people Monday. Okay, not in every country, but Mondays. So we like this thing like January, beginning of the year, December, end of the year. That's how we're programmed to think, and it's practical. We need to kind of function that way. The mind, not linear at all. How is it possible? Because what they say is every moment of consciousness, and you have to check this yourself, they say has a preceding moment that causes it. Preceding moment that causes it. So what we're familiar with is our thoughts. That's gross mind, thoughts. See a thought come, and some thoughts seem random, okay? But what Buddhism says is more subtle consciousness. There's moments of mind, moments of consciousness, same word. Moments of mind, more subtle, that create the thoughts. The thoughts arise from that. And that's located in technically subtle consciousness of your mind. Moments of mind, one firing after another, after another, after another. And each one is preceded by a moment that causes it. Each one, and there's always a preceding cause for things. Things don't just happen in Buddhism, they depend on previous causes and conditions. It's the only way things can be or arise, dependent arising. It's the only way things exist. Yeah. And just look at yourself, how you depend on your body and mind. It's the only way you can exist. Okay, and you want to go all the way back to your birth, how you came out in, let's say you were born in a delivery room in a hospital like most people were. Not everybody, but most people were. So when you came out, depending on tissue and this form of this body and all that, and then what came out was baby girl or boy, or baby came out. So if, Larry or Andre or Jill or Linda, if that was known for all time to always be there, okay, then everybody in the delivery room would know that already. But what comes out is baby, and then you're labeled by your name, okay? So that's just kind of a little thing on dependent arising, how we arise in dependence on these things that relates to emptiness, okay? But just to go back to reincarnation, there's always a previous moment that causes it. We want to get into this idea that things don't just arise randomly. They arise based on my body, speech, and mind. Everything I think, say, or do leaves an imprint in my consciousness. This is what Buddhism says. That's karma. That's the law of cause and effect. Everything I think, say, and do will leave an imprint in my mind or consciousness. Subtle consciousness, okay? And on some level, the mind also exists on most subtle level, clear light nature, and those imprints are contained in there. So what I want to do is operate well with body, speech, and mind to create positive imprints in that subtle consciousness, okay? Because that ripens in happiness for me. The negative imprints ripen in negativity for me and suffering. But we have to get this idea that there's always a preceding moment that causes a preceding moment. So what we get used to is that the mind, that we've got the body, that's physical. Tibetan Buddhism says the mind's not physical. The mind is not physical. It's not the brain. Brain is part of the body. Mind's not physical. So we have a difficult sense of understanding what the mind is. But the mind has a unique way of connecting with the form, the body, and always riding along with that body in a gross, subtle, and most subtle way, okay? But what Tibetan Buddhism says, it's those imprints in the consciousness that inform how the life will be, how the body will form. Trajectory, all based on those seeds, those imprints, those propensities that you're planting every moment right now with your body, speech, and mind. We can't take care of what happened before. That's done, okay? But what we can be conscious of is what we're doing right now and in the future. Only way you can take care of what's happened already is through purification practices. Okay, so negative stuff keeps showing up for me, and sometimes we have thematic things happening, okay? And you may have noticed this as a young child. So as a young child, were you okay with killing insects? Anybody in here okay with killing insects? I was as a child. And I wasn't raised Buddhist, so I wasn't taught by my parents that we shouldn't kill anything, including insects. That's a Buddhist precept, okay? But I wasn't raised that way. I wasn't raised by Buddhists. So the normal thing is, we had a porch in the back of the house. In the summer, my mother, in the spring, she'd say, take the vacuum and go out there and clean up all the insects. Well, some of them were alive. And her whole thing was, oh, you got to get insects out of the house. And I saw many, many times her killing an insect in the house, and that was a good thing. She'd say, oh, this is good. Oh, I got it, and I've killed it. Like that. So that was what you learn behavior, and I was like, oh, then it's good to kill insects. So, but somehow as a child, to add to it, not only did I take rebirth to people that felt it was good to kill insects, like most of us did. We didn't know. But I had a certain glee in killing insects. I was very comfortable doing it, where some kids were like, oh, I don't want to do it. I'm scared. You do it. But I had no problem doing it. Unfortunate part of my karma. So I killed many insects with great glee, right? Till I got into Buddhism. Okay. But you can change anything. Okay. But I just noticed as a child, there was comfort in killing karma for me. Do you notice patterns like that as a child in you? Certain things, like some of you were liars, right, as kids. So I knew kids that shoplifted, teenagers that had no trouble shoplifting. That was never my thing, shoplifting. I wasn't into stealing. I wasn't comfortable with that at all. I didn't have an imprint for that. Okay? But the killing the insects as a kid, and then my dad used to fish, so he would take me fishing. For me, of the 3 kids, I was the easiest. I never got sick on the boat, and I caught more fish than anybody. I was comfortable. Again, killing karma. Must have been an imprint. Then I got into Buddhism. Okay, how do you change it? You can change it. You can purify anything. I wasn't stuck with it, but I heard about the killing insects, fish, and I was like, I'm going to hell, is what they say, but you can purify. Okay? So my first course, 10 days, okay? Then I heard about the insects, and I was a little disturbed by that, and I was like, God, I killed so many insects. But some of the insects, part of them I killed to obey my mom. Go out on the porch, clean the porch. I was helping my mom. That was so I got some credit for that. You get good points. So karma's mixed. But karma's mixed. I had a good intention. My mom asked me to do it. I'm obeying my mother. Went out, I did a good job. I came in, she said, great job. Now we can use the porch. Okay, I didn't know any better. Then I'm on the playground, 4th grade. Playground. All these yellow jackets, wasps, were around the seesaws, stinging everybody. So I had no problem smashing them. But the motivation was so my friends didn't get stung. Like that. I didn't know, great, I stung them. Fortunately, one of them stung me at one point, then I stopped. But I killed lots of them before I got stung. I'm sure it was Rinpoche stinging me. Because then I was like, later I was like, Rinpoche is like, A Buddha can manifest in any way to connect with the disciple, right? But again, didn't know any better. So now I come to my first Buddhist course, I hear this, I'm a little bit like, whoa, and I'm living in Nepal, and I finish the course, I go back to my little sleepy, dirty guest house for 50 cents a night. I didn't have a lot of money, so in this guest house where there's lots of insects in the guest house. So I thought about it after this course. It had an imprint, like some little flower bloomed, and I kind of obviously had some imprint also of not killing, taking care of life, and that suddenly sprouted. That little karmic seed went off, and I went, well, I'm going to see if I can live for a day without killing any insects, right? So I learned, I had one of those, those brooms from Pier 1 Imports, those Asian brooms. And I learned how to escort the spider out of the room with the broom. I was very scared. There's terrible spiders over there. Anyway, out of the room. And when I did it, you have to notice, how do you feel? I was happy. I saw the spider go off. I was like, okay, that spider's got his life like me. I didn't need to crush it. Off he goes to do, spiders do a lot of good. So I was like, okay, then another, and mosquitoes, instead of swatting them, I let them out the window, put on my insect repellent instead of killing them, like that. So what happens is you start to use other precautions. We were at Copan years ago when it was more primitive. Now it's very posh, right? It's so funny to think Copan is posh, but I call it posh now. But it used to be quite primitive, and I was sharing a room with a woman at one of our conferences years ago, and there were just mosquitoes in the room. We couldn't do any. I mean, the room was sweltering hot. We had to sleep with the door open. The mosquitoes were just. So what I did is I put my insect repellent on and put earplugs in, so that way I could. Practical. Then I didn't have to hear, zzz, which drove me crazy, right? And her snoring. Okay. So I had my earplugs. But these are things with insects you have to get a little bit more skillful and creative to avoid those kind of things. So I did it for 24 hours, the not killing insects. And then you assess your mind. So I kind of just checked at the end of the day and I went, I did it for 24 hours. I felt good. I was happy. I noticed I was happier than killing them and how I would feel from what I remembered of killing insects. So then I said, I'll do it tomorrow. So I did it the next day, and I did it the next day, and I never stopped. So new imprint for me, new imprint. So again, checking. So then we say, I don't believe in reincarnation because I want proof, right? People want proof. And a lot of people don't remember past lives, correct? It's very rare for people to remember past lives. But you do notice these little bit of imprints in you when you're younger. And you notice how they carry on, become habits when you're older. Okay? So some of you have kids, correct? How many has more than one kid? Okay. Are your kids the same or different, Larry? Different. Kids same or different? Very different. Celia? Different. Same parents? Kids, same parents, very different. What's that about? Did you ever think about that? And did you ever notice habits in your young kids when they're young? I noticed my niece and nephews. One was really comfortable killing insects. One was always like, no, that, where does it come from? Their parents were different. Does it come from the parents? But so these are the things you need to investigate. I investigated thoroughly. I didn't believe in reincarnation. I looked at that. Why my nephew at 1 year old, he couldn't read yet. Total fascination with books. 1 year old. We couldn't find him in the apartment. Where is he? We find him in a room in front of the bookcase, pulling books off, big book across his lap, just turning the page, just couldn't, always with books, right? His older brother, 1.5 years older, couldn't care less about books. It was all about trucks, like trucks, technological things with buttons. Well, he's computer whiz. But young age, it was already there. Young age, the older one, at a young age, worrier. Well, when they're kids, what do they have to worry about? So I started checking. I was a new Buddhist at the time when they were born. I was like, why is he worried? Why does he worry? Right? Parents don't particularly worry. Right? Both parents read. Why doesn't he read? Because he's got his own mind, imprints in his mind. Buddhism says coming from past lives, past experiences. Where else would it come from? Is he just like that? I mean, these are things I had to really think about, watching them. They're 1.5 years apart, same parents. I mean, these are two kids, they can't be more different, these two kids. There's some similarities, but they are on two totally different trajectories. They're now in their 30s. So two totally different paths, different things. So you have to look at these things. Where does this stuff come from? Right? And the one with the book, he's a big reader. Always reading at an early age, reading other, like that. Where did it come from? The one who wanted to play violin, the one who's great at sports, the one who went into healing arts, right? And you see this at a young age, how it is. You see your own habits. So you have to question, where does it come from? Where does the suffering come from? So for me, a little bit in this whole belief in God that I had in the beginning, as I got older and stuff, God a little bit disempowered me because God's in control of it all. So I have no control over what, I'm trying to be a good person, but in the end, I just have to pray to this external being who's maybe going to take care of it, maybe not. It just felt really disempowering for me. You have to figure out your own path in that. But all those other questions I asked of how does a 2-year-old child die of leukemia and they can't do anything about it, and where does the suffering come from? Why does this person have all the advantages and they're so nasty? This person's struggling and they're so good, and on and on. Like so the Buddha went out, his trajectory was to figure out an end of the suffering. An end of the suffering. When he saw it, he couldn't believe this would happen to his family members and went in search of a solution. And he found the solution was in dismantling delusion in your own consciousness. And then maximizing that through meditation practices that lead you to higher states of realization, where you are beyond suffering. You're not creating any suffering conditions anymore like that. And it's possible for every one of us in this room and every one of us on Zoom to do that. Absolutely possible. That's our Buddhist path. So you first want to explore that. So then you say, well, I want proof that I existed. Tell me the proof that you didn't exist before. What's the proof for that? We don't think about it. I don't remember. Okay, so you say, I don't remember. So nothing existed. Okay. Do you remember being inside your mother? Most people don't. Did that not happen then? I mean, come on, once we turned 40, you don't even remember what you had for breakfast yesterday. So you're going to say, I didn't have breakfast because I don't remember? But honestly, you have to do this work. This is how I thought about it. But reincarnation, I was like, I don't remember anything. I don't think anything exists. But then I'm like, I don't remember being inside my mother. And I know that happened. They showed me pictures. And there's pictures of my older sister and brother next to my mother with my mother pregnant. Well, who was she pregnant with? She didn't have any miscarriages. That must have been me. That's what I could see the ages they were. That was me. Like that, I heard the stories about it. So I don't remember it. Am I going to say it didn't happen? It did, because I'm here. So you have to think about these things. And then there's a very effective meditation you can do. It comes in the mind and its potential Discovering Buddhism module. It's module number 1. It's a great module to do if you haven't done it. And there's a meditation on the continuity of consciousness. Continuity of consciousness. And you trace back to understand there's a connectivity, cause and effect relationship in your mind. How you got in the room right now, okay? So how many entered through the back door, right? And do you remember at the back door, you looked around the room, eye consciousness, taking in data, taking in information, and then from there you chose a seat, correct? There's a choosing process. So first, and you don't notice, it all happens automatically. It happens really quickly as well. Okay, but you could take yourself from your seat right now, and I could ask you to review and go back to the door, and you'd see there's not only muscles moving created by neurological activity, having you move and turn this and all that, but you could go back to the door where it's consciousness that was dictating. That first I see, I take in information, based on the information I discern, I want to sit there. And then based on that causes the next moment, I need to now engage the brain to move in a certain way over to that seat, all created by moments of consciousness. It's all rooted in the mind that creates connection to the brain, physical matter that has your body functioning in a certain way. All of it connected by moments creating the next moment, creating the next moment, the next moment, turning you around in a certain position and sitting you down. All this connectivity, which also creates another moment and another result and another result and another result. So there's no end to your consciousness, Buddhism says. No beginning, because there's always a preceding cause, okay? And no end, because there will always be a subsequent result. And that's your mind, a continuum, a stream of experiences, mental activities, moments of consciousness. one after another after another. So Buddhism says you do get another round. You get countless rounds. But what we want to do is not just say, I'm going to experience, because some of those rebirths might be less than advantageous than the one you have now. And that generates some fear, the unknown. I don't know what I'm going to get next time, okay? So all I can do is practice as well as I can this time to evolve a little bit more fully, to make sure that those future lives are going to be better and better and better and better. That's our practice. It's a lot what we're focused on in this tradition, is not only helping all beings, but getting me to a place where I can help them unlimitedly. How do I do it? Evolve a little bit better and better and better. You know, continuing to wake up my mind and engage and participate in my karma. It's the best I can do. It's the best I can do. Is it a challenging path? It can be. So is life. This is a path that takes great effort. So if you want something easy, this is not it. Find something else. But this is incredibly worthwhile. Incredibly worthwhile. Okay. So some things you just have to think about, and that is, you know, and can I devote a little bit more in this life? Because this life, you're set. You got here. Fantastic. You made it. Okay. A precious human rebirth is not just being a human, it's a human who meets the Dharma and can practice the Dharma well. That's a precious human rebirth. Don't waste this opportunity. It's rare, okay? So there's meditations you can do on that to really fully appreciate this life. But then what happens is we're focused on, the real practitioners are focused on future lives. I need to make imprints now for the future lives. I'm already here. This is set. This is great. Got here. Don't have to worry about this now, but I need to use it now. Make sense? Okay, we're going to take a break. 15 minutes. I want you to really, and let's not blah blah on the break. This is gossip time, okay? Go to the bathroom, have a cup of tea, and I want you to reflect on, again, you get up, you move. I'm another moment closer to death. This is our mini retreat. I'm another moment, I'm another cup of tea closer to death. Another going to the bathroom closer to death. And I want you to think about the 9-point death meditation. Think about a little bit now what you can invest in, again, realistically changing up some things in your life to get more practice time, to get that future rebirth going in the right direction. Good rebirth like that. And see what other things you think about reincarnation, why you don't believe in reincarnation, for instance. I'd love to hear comments about that. 15 minutes, thank you.
So we'll come back at 11:40.
So Patrick, nice to see you. Who else?
Okay, everyone, we'll have 2 more minutes and then gather back in the Gampa. 2 minutes. Two minutes till Gampa time.
So there's a couple of questions I'm going to talk about right now. Thank you. From YouTube, what is an effective way for Western minds to comprehend our inevitable death without it being perceived as morbid or negative? And they added it heads into nihilism easily. So the reason it's morbid or negative is simply the conditioning of our society. Buddhists don't see it that way, like that. So it's just conditioning from the society. So I would say the more you understand about Buddhism, then it steers away from being morbid or nihilistic, like that, because we are going to die. That's reality. And then it's a matter of, well, how would I like that experience to be? And we'd like it to be peaceful and calm and things like that. So how do I get it to be that way? And it's about practicing Dharma or finding a spiritual path that is going to support you in that way. So I don't know if that answers Colleen, your question, but let me know. You can always follow up. And then another question, if mind is beginningless, why is it said that some people obtained enlightenment in one lifetime? Wouldn't the person have gone through eons of lifetimes of imprints on their minds? So what they usually mean is they've had eons, countless rebirths, where they were perfecting and using the time wisely and wisely and wisely. But what happened, and I'll give you the example of Milarepa, 11th century saint. So he had all of these imprints from previous lives, okay? Came back in a certain life where there were still some negative imprints. So he had a situation in his family where his mother wanted to get back at relatives that had harmed them. This is in ancient days. Asked him to learn and perform black magic to kill these relatives. So here he was murdering in a lifetime, which again, mixed karma creates, he's got incredible imprints, but he becomes a murderer in his life. Develops renunciation in the murdering, realizes this is not the path himself, has incredible regret for what he's done after harming all these people, right? And decides to start to practice Dharma and searches for a guru and meets his guru, Marpa, who's a lay practitioner, married with a son, whatever. But this is his guru, this is his connection. I often personally thought, there's a few of us adhering to the thing that Lama Zopa Rinpoche was Marpa. I sometimes feel that way, have felt that way. Reincarnation of Marpa. So Marpa meets him and realizes this is a student, this is somebody special that has the ability, has the promise that can clean up all the negative stuff he's done through their relationship and the instructions Marpa will give him. And so Marpa takes him on as a disciple. Milarepa kind of pleads, like in the ancient days, you'd bring your most precious jewel to get one line of Dharma. That's how precious the Dharma was. Now the Dharma's everywhere and people come and they're not interested in practicing and, things like that. So Marpa took him on, and what Marpa saw was, based on his realizations, that he had to put Milarepa through incredible purification ordeals to purify the negative killing karma. It's the only way. So he had him build these towers, is the way he did it. And there was no land moving equipment in those days other than your back. So Milarepa built these stone towers, and he would build one lugging all the stuff on his back. His back was shredded, bleeding, pustules, the whole bit, right? Wasn't feeding him a lot of food, and would build the tower, would then knock on the back door of the house. I finished the tower, to Marpa, present the tower, to get one teaching of Dharma. To get one line is all he wanted, was, please teach me the Dharma. And Marpa would say, well, first you need to build a tower over there. And he was really rude to him. Build it over there. That. Like we think, the guru should be compassionate, and sometimes they manifest wrathfully. That's a blessing. That's a teaching for us, like that. If you see the guru in the right way and you have an authentic guru, okay? Doesn't mean, please be discerning about gurus, because there are false beings out there that are on a trip and that can do great harm to you. So you have to be very careful, especially in the West, okay? But anyway, so he built the tower, and he'd come up and he was like, please, can I have one teaching of Dharma? And Marpa would look at the tower and said, oh, you put it over there? I made a mistake. Take it down and put it over there. And Milarepa would spend another few months dissembling, building. I don't know how many times he did that, 7 times or something, okay? And then in the middle of this, Marpa's wife intervened, and she took pity on Milarepa, whose back was all, infected and whatever, and she put a balm on his back to help him, and because she, gave him extra food, whatever. And then later Marpa scolded her and said, you've just delayed his enlightenment because of that. So there's different ways of looking at it. Westerners don't want to hear this story because they go, that's abuse, that's abusive. Not if you have an authentic guru that you're devoted to. Okay, so this is an East-West debate that's come up in FPMT many times, like that. It's a tricky thing when you're merging cultures. Okay, the main thing is just find that authentic guru and devote to them and ask their guidance and follow the instructions. It's the quickest way to enlightenment, especially when you have a teacher like Lama Zopa Rinpoche or His Holiness the Dalai Lama or somebody like that. Okay, you want somebody with high-level realizations is who I'm talking about. But check them out. Do not jump. Check them out thoroughly. His Holiness says, spend 6 years and be a spy on your guru. Really check out, are they walking the talk? So then so what happened is he, through these ordeals, got the teachings, went into retreat, and got enlightened in that lifetime. So that was what they would say, is he had all the imprints, but in one lifetime turned his life around and was able in that lifetime to do it. So that's what they mean by things getting enlightened in one lifetime. So it's an inspiring story that it's possible for any of us to advance. The sacrifices you have to make would be extensive, and they reap great rewards. It's hard now in the degenerative times. People don't want to work that hard for their enlightenment. Lama Zopa Rinpoche talks about one time we were at the Light of the Path retreat that was hosted for years by Kadampa Center in Asheville, North Carolina. And Rinpoche was on the throne and was talking about, he said, with your sports team, your football, people like their sports teams, right? And how people cheer. And the Rinpoche said, and it was adorable the way he did it on the throne, and he said, so you need to cheer for your enlightenment. And Rinpoche went, like this. But it's like that. But we're more interested in our sports teams than practicing Dharma, right? People know all the scores, all the latest things, but practice Dharma, they can't remember the 9-point death meditation. Right? Isn't that life? Isn't that how it goes? The things that we're immersed with. So, okay. Any other questions in here right now from? Any other thoughts on reincarnation? Yes. And what's your name? Mark. Thank you.
So earlier in the morning when he was speaking about the hell realms, so are the hell realms, if we understand them correctly, present in our current life?
Yes, that's debatable. So I've heard it where there's an actual place of these hell realms, supposed to be some number of yojanas below the stupa in Bodh Gaya. I don't know about that. But I do know that occasionally it looks like we see a hell realm on Earth, right? We see people living in incredible suffering conditions. So technically the hell realms are supposed to be worse than that of what you're seeing. The time length is very different than on planet Earth. But I know that one time I was visiting a student in a mental institution, and I walked through a ward in the mental institution, and there was a guy sitting on the edge of his bed. The temperature in the room was like, low 70s Fahrenheit, and he was wrapped in blankets with blue lips, just freezing to death, like locked in his mind in some kind of freezing hell realm. But I could interact with him, I could see him on a human realm, so I don't really know. I think sometimes it's a state of mind, and I think it could exist somewhere like that, could exist someplace. That's what I've heard teachers say, so, yeah. But again, knowing they're temporary, you're not in these places all the time. When you exhaust the karma, by the suffering, you move out into something better. And we also have mixed karma, so we also have positive karma that will ripen at some point, like that. So I want to talk about what happens when you are getting out of this body, when they say the consciousness goes on to another rebirth, and what happens and what that process is. And there are internal visions that appear to your consciousness, internal visions that appear to your consciousness. So what normally happens is in the normal aging process, some of you are experiencing this already, okay? The normal aging process, the body is made up also on a gross, subtle, and most subtle level. The mind exists on a gross, subtle, and most subtle level, okay? And they are merged together, they kind of ride along with each other, lifetime through lifetime through lifetime, which is most subtle wind, which makes up the body, is a support for the body, and most subtle mind. They say the most subtle mind, which is its clear, light nature, okay, has a unique ability to mount the most subtle wind, okay, like a rider on a horse, okay? But it is the most subtle mind that contains all the karmic seeds, from all your past activities of body, speech, and mind. They're imprinted in that most subtle mind, in that consciousness. And when it is mounted, combined with that most subtle wind, it's those seeds that dictate how that body's going to form and how that life will be. Like that. They're always merged together, but they're different. Most subtle wind is physical in nature. Most subtle mind is non-physical. Okay? So the most subtle wind, just to get a sense of this, how does this work, is which creates our body. The most subtle wind is physical in nature, and we know this in different methodologies. For instance, it's like a life force. Life force. So in the Chinese system, it's called qi. We've heard of that. Qigong, Tai Chi, this life force. In the Hindu Ayurvedic system, it's called prana. And in the Tibetan system, it's called lung, wind. Wind energy creates the substance of your body. Okay? So there's a most subtle wind, and then there's subtle winds. So let's say then I've got the most subtle mind is mounted there, starts dictating, and fertilization takes place at the beginning of the body's beginning of this life, when a sperm and egg comes together. So we have proof of that. The sperm and egg are physical in nature. You can look under a microscope and see them. You can see fertilization taking place. We're well aware of that. We've heard about that for years, okay? So as the fertilization takes place, subtle mind is there, okay? But not physical in nature. Fertilization takes place, all physical, and then the cells start replicating. We can prove that. We know that. The cells start replicating in a certain way. Okay? Then you have a deformity right in the beginning. Okay? Where does that come from? Tibetan Buddhism says from the mind. There was a seed in that mind, in that consciousness, created by a past activity. In this case, if you see the deformity as negative, okay, created by a negative karmic imprint. Okay? And that's manifesting right now in a deformity. And then the baby's born and they go, we can fix it. Surgeons go, we can fix that hole in the heart. And then it gets fixed, and that's because of a positive karmic seed, positive karmic imprint in that consciousness of that baby, and also the parents experiencing that. This is the way karma works. That's a whole other course, karma, but that's how it's interconnected like that. But let's say the cells just start replicating, okay? Well, then subtle winds start appearing, and they start creating. So there's a subtle wind that goes out of the arm, and then the arm bud develops, helps the arm bud develop. And then when the baby starts moving the arm, okay, it's getting into a little bit more gross level, okay? But you've got subtle winds springing up, upward moving subtle winds, moving, the head develops like that, the baby can turn, the eyes start developing, all from those upward moving subtle winds. There are downward voiding subtle winds. The legs start developing, genitals like that. And then what happens, the baby gets born, comes out, and the gross wind gets activated, and the baby cries. And then respiration. This is a gross wind. You see me, you hear it, you see me breathe, you see the inhalation, exhalation, gross wind. I think we understand that with our body. That's how the body starts functioning. So as you're naturally aging, and you get older, those subtle winds start dissolving and absorbing. They weaken. It's a natural process. It's just how long this physical thing can manifest. This is a machine, and machines wear out, pieces wear out. That's why people have pieces replaced, like machines do. But it just makes sense. But then eventually, there's certain parts of the engine that you cannot replace any longer, and they just naturally wear out. But here's what happens first is the subtle winds start weakening, changing, dissolving, absorbing. And so that is why your eyes weaken. Upward moving subtle winds start dissolving and your eyesight weakens. Your hearing weakens. Your hair turns gray or white, like that. It's just a natural process. When downward voiding subtle winds start shifting and changing and dissolving and aging and weakening, right? Digestion gets a little more challenging, right? I could say that to any woman over 50, correct? Right? It's different than when you were 27 and you could eat anything, right? Why do old people shuffle? Do you know a lot of old people that shuffle? They can't pick their legs up. My dad used to say that. He was 6'5", very long legs. When we would walk as a family, he was way ahead of us. I always remember my mother calling, you know. We were always running to keep up with him. He grew old. You know, my brother and I are going into some restaurant with him, and he's way back in the parking lot. My brother turns around. I was living with my dad, so I was used to him shuffling. I knew he walked really slowly. My brother goes, "Come on." And he goes, "I am." And he goes, and then he's shuffling. My brother goes, "Why are you shuffling? Why don't you pick your feet up?" "I can't pick my feet up anymore. My legs feel weak." Okay? So my brother goes, and my brother he's great, and he goes, "I don't like that. I don't like him being like that." And I said, "Well, the only reason that he's shuffling is his downward voiding winds are dissolving." I said to my brother looked at me like, "What?" You know? But that's actually what's happening. If you just realize what's happening, now you can exercise and keep yourself in good physical shape. That helps. That will slow the process down. It makes sense. But you can't do it forever. Just things wear out after a while. But we certainly know the people that have maintained a healthy diet and exercise, the people I know, they're doing much better than the people that never did and were heavy drinkers and smokers. It's just normal. I mean, you're putting stuff in here, it has an effect. It has an effect. So that's why, so you see, gravity also has a part, and everything starts sucking you into the ground. It's just like that. It's just a normal, natural thing. So what happens is, as you're approaching the very end of that process, okay, then the winds from the upper part, everything dissolves into the heart center, according to Tibetan Buddhism. Okay? And the downward voiding winds, everything starts dissolving up into the heart center. It's usually the last place there's heat in the body when somebody dies. Heart center. And this is actually where most subtle mind is contained, according to the Tibetan system. It's not the brain again. Most subtle mind. It's not a physical thing that's contained, but where it kind of resides last, mounted on that most subtle wind. All the winds dissolve, and there are various internal visions that appear to your consciousness automatically, okay? And then what they say is, in the very center of an energy center at your heart, that energy center is a wheel, subtle wheel. It's not something you'd cut the body open and go, "There's the heart chakra." Okay, it's a subtle, and there are chakras which are energy centers. Chakra is a Sanskrit word that means wheel. There's one at your crown that's a certain shape and has certain spokes, number of spokes. There's one at your heart shaped upward. One at your throat. One at your heart, navel, and sexual organs. Energy centers. And you feel stuff there, don't you? You get alarmed, and sometimes there's a gripping in your heart. Sometimes you feel gripping in your throat. Some people get a twinge or a headache. You feel it in parts, so there's energy there. Now, there's energy throughout the body, but those are bigger energy centers. So the heart center, in the very center of that chakra, is an indestructible drop. These aren't things you can see, but subtle, indestructible drop where the wind, most subtle wind and most subtle mind reside. Everything absorbs there when you're dying. Okay? These internal visions happen. Finally, the last absorptions, like that, and then they say everything absorbs into that center of the heart chakra center, and then the indestructible drop opens, and then wind and mind leave the body, leave that form. And then you are officially dead, and actually the consciousness has left the body, they will say in the Tibetan system. And the body actually starts changing and decaying at that point. I have been with some dead bodies, Buddhists, and we've been doing practices with them. And often for 2.5 days, even in hot India, no decomposition happened until the consciousness left. And the bodies actually looked different after the consciousness left. I saw it in several people myself. So you witness, initially we're so alarmed by the death, and there's so many activities going on around the death. If they're in a hospital, sometimes they're kind of, the medical care is like urging you along. But you can also discuss with them in advance that we'd like to leave the body as long as possible. And often they're much better now leaving you undisturbed if it's not a busy hospital, things like that. They can be quite respectful. But if you know the signs and you're looking, there is a somewhat dramatic different look of the body just turning gray and looking really dead, as opposed to having a glow when the consciousness is still there. And normally when the consciousness is still there, decomposition will not occur. Like that is what I've witnessed myself and with Lama Zopa Rinpoche's mother in India, where it was warm, and there was her little face, you know, outside a heap of katas, of these offering scarves that people offered and paid respects, and really glowing. The room was like full of this energy, incredible energy, and we were meditating in the room. And then when the consciousness left, it was just like a gray mask, and the energy felt really different. That was my experience as a somewhat newer Buddhist. So again, you can check. And then these are the signs of what happens. And then what happens is that most subtle consciousness mounted on what's called a Bardo being's body now. Bardo simply means in between. In between. You're in between two lives. It's a transition. It's a transition, okay? And then that Bardo being it's a more subtle body, so it can traverse through walls and things like that. Its sole purpose is, as an ordinary being, uncontrollably catapulted, okay, through all kinds of different experiences as you're looking for the conditions that will come together for you to take the next rebirth. Meaning, whatever seeds are in the consciousness of that Bardo being, okay, is uncontrollably catapulting you around to come to the right conditions that you can take rebirth in. You don't have control over it. Like that. And you're moving through different scenarios. Every 7 days, they say, you go through, again, a mini transition, like a mini death. Not as dramatic as getting out of one rebirth into the initial Bardo, but mini transitions as you're looking for that rebirth. You're looking for those conditions to come together for what rebirth you will take. At 49 days, which is 7 weeks, you absolutely will take a rebirth. A situation will arise based on the karma, and then everything reverses. All the visions will reverse, that I'm going to talk about in a minute. And then everything goes from this most subtle form again to fetus developing, if it's human, inside an animal, inside a human, developing, subtle winds emerging, and then eventually the development and the baby being born. Like that. So let me explain these internal visions that occur to your consciousness. And it's based on, our body is based on elements, like elements that support the planet as well, that exist in the planet. And we are kind of a little microcosm of our universe anyway, in our bodies. It's kind of ingenious the way things were created for our bodies. So what happens is the first thing that starts absorbing and dissolving is the earth element. That's our body, represented by our body. So when the earth element dissolves, often the body becomes very weak, and this is when we're still dying, actively dying, and you'll notice this in people. Your limbs become loose, and you'll have a feeling, if it's the person, that you're sinking under the earth. You cannot move. People have explained this to me as they're dying, told me they felt this way. If they can still communicate, they cannot move. So if you know that you're going to come into this and you reach a point in your dying process, this is happening, there's less fear because you go, okay, simply earth element is dissolving. Could we be that lucid to show up like that and just accept what's happening? You know, and what you want to do is remember these visions. You want to remind yourself, I'm not going to miss the clear light. This is a natural process. Remember your guru. Like that. The aggregate of form, so your different aggregates that support body and mind are dissolving as well, and the body is the aggregate of form, the only form aggregate of your 5 aggregates. 4 of them, the other 4 are mental aggregates in your mind. The form element dissolves, and there's different wisdoms associated with each aggregate. In this case, mirror-like wisdom dissolves, and your sight becomes unclear, darker. But what appears to your consciousness, there is an internal vision that appears automatically, is a mirage-like image. Mirage-like image. You're looking out on a hot road, and it looks like there's water there, and there's water appears, and that is your mind. It's not separate from your mind. So these are visions we can do, and we do them in tantric practice every day. I do them several times a day to remind myself of these visions so I can recognize them at the death time. His Holiness says he does them 6 or 8 times a day in his tantric practices. You can do them yourself without tantric practice to remind yourself. Do them slowly. We'll do a short meditation also of these visions, just to give some imprint in your mind. So mirage-like image, that's your whole experience. It's not separate from your mind. And when you're doing the meditations, you want to keep your mind focused there. Mirage-like image, okay, as focused as you can. Slowly you do these visions. Water all around you, that's your mind. It's not separate. So initially we're contriving it. You know, I'm not experiencing it per se, but I'm visualizing. Good enough. That's where we start. Okay? Now what happens is these visions actually appear to you now. They appear every night when you fall asleep. So every time you go through a mini death in this life, strong sneeze, strong yawn, sexual orgasm, these visions appear. Are you recognizing them? If you're not meditating on them regularly, deeply like that, we're not going to recognize them. Okay? But they happen every day. And then when you wake up in the morning, they happen in reverse, just like the birth process. So what we're using in Tantra is we're using our waking state, our sleeping state, you know, as simulating death and rebirth, basically in Tantra, the different activities like that. So earth element, that's the first one that dissolves, mirage-like image. Second vision, water element dissolves. All the fluids are drying up in the body, okay? And you've seen this with actively dying people. Aggregate of feeling dissolves, okay? Body consciousness can no longer experience pain, pleasure, or neutral feelings. That's all that means, okay? And what appears to your consciousness is a smoke-like vision. A blue-gray, as if you're in a room filled with blue-gray smoke. That's your entire experience. So you try to hold the mind there as long as you can. The next is the fire element dissolves. The heat is going from the top down to the heart, from the feet up, right? You no longer can digest food or drink. No longer very mindful of any affairs, of any people, things like that. Wisdom of discernment dissolves. So you may not remember names of people, close people, things like that. Inhalation is very weak. Exhalation longer, lengthier. Cannot smell anymore. And your internal vision is an appearance of fireflies in the night sky, or like when you have a big bonfire, you put a blanket over it and sparks go up. So sparks is your entire experience as the fire element dissolves. And this is all gross consciousness absorbing. So the person could still be alive. It could happen while you're actively dying. It could happen just after they're declared dead of that last exhalation in our Western system. Okay. Fourth one is the wind element dissolves. So winds are moving everything to the heart. And this is where inhalation, exhalation ceases, where you are declared clinically dead in the Western system. Okay? Aggregate of compositional factors absorbs. And there's an appearance of, and it describes things like here the tongue becomes thick and short, root of the tongue becomes blue. If you're able to see that in a person, often you don't look at them, their tongue's withdrawn in the mouth. But these things I've actually seen in people. It's really amazing. And there was a woman, we were taking care of a guy years ago who lived near Vajrapani in California, that center out there. And he had a wonderful care worker, an Irish woman who was taking care of him. And he had other care workers, but she was really special. And she was wonderful, and she really loved him. And she was there for some months. He was dying of cancer. And Rick, the guy dying, he's just a wonderful spirit. And so he wanted her to read him the book, Tibetan book of dying. The Tibetan book of, it's really called the Tibetan book of the in-between, is the correct translation. And I think we translated it as the Tibetan book of the dead, okay? But it's really the Tibetan book of the in-between. So she would read stuff, and then I would come to visit and do some Vajrasattva practice with him. And I'd come in, and she would take me to the book, and she'd go, "It's really like this. This is really happening." Like it was so clear this is what is going on with people when they're dying. So the appearance when the wind element dissolves, the last of the gross consciousness, you have a glow, the vision is a glow around a candle that's about to go out. So like a flickering, sputtering butter lamp that's about to go out. And that glow around it is that vision. Completely your mind, nothing separate from your mind. Now we have more subtle consciousness dissolving, okay? 80 conceptions dissolve. Winds in the right and left channels above the heart enter the central channel at the top of the head. So you've got the subtle energy system, you've got 3 channels in your body. Central channel that runs from the third eye position here, diameter of a drinking straw, curves up to the crown chakra, curves around, goes all the way down to your spine, slightly more to the back of your body, where the lower end is about 4 finger widths below your navel. Central channel. Okay, central channel is slightly bluish on the outside, white on the inside, but like a translucent tube of light, again, the diameter of a drinking straw. These are not things you can see if you cut open the body. This is your subtle energy system. There's right and left channels that run right along the central channel, okay? Half the diameter of the central channel. The right runs from the right nostril up, down, left from the left nostril up. The left one is slightly whitish in color. Again, translucent tubes of light. The lower ends of those side channels curve and enter the central channel. The goal to gain higher levels of realization is first you get tantric initiation after you build a good foundation of the Lam Rim, of the philosophy. If your guru gives you a yidam, tells you to take tantric initiation, find the right person to do that, that's authentic, that you have a connection with, because you're going to have a Vajra guru relationship with them, guru-disciple relationship, and take tantric vows, things like that. But from that, you do a generation stage of Tantra where you're generating through visualization a practice to bring yourself closer to that aspect of the Buddha, that certain deity. Okay? Then you do a completion stage where you're trying to complete the path, and that's when you're going to work with the subtle energy system, these channels. And the goal is to get the winds from the side channels into the central channel in the right way, to actualize higher states of realization, where these visions arise automatically. It will be your mind. That's what you see. That's what you experience, these visions. Then you work on those to manifest the clear light, the last vision. How do you describe clear light? I don't know. It's very hard to describe. Robert Thurman he says brilliant transparency. I kind of like those words, brilliant transparency. But what you're doing in the clear light is you're trying to meditate on emptiness, to actualize higher states of realization and have a realization there with the more subtle consciousness. It affords you a better opportunity at the death time to do it, right? So we need to get ready for this experience. We want to. You really have a great opportunity there, okay? So then you have this dissolution of the winds moving again. So then they're moving from the heart, the right winds moving, right channel, okay, and aggregate of compositional factors. And you have we already did that one. Then you have the 80 conceptions dissolving, winds in right and left channels above the heart, enter the central channel here at the top of the head. So they come down, everything moving into the heart. Okay, and what you have now, the vision is what they call the white appearance from these white drops coming down. White appearance creates this white vacuity. It's like a harvest moon. You're looking over a field during a harvest moon, that white, milky, it's not clear light, it's a white, milky experience, which is your whole vision. Excuse me. Next subtle vision, okay? Mind of white appearance dissolves. Winds in the right and left channels below the heart begin to enter, coming up the base of the spine, up the central channel to the heart, okay? And what manifests for your mind is what's called a red increase. A red increase. So one time I was sitting with Lama Zopa Rinpoche at the Japanese temple in Bodh Gaya, and we were looking out the window, and it was sunset, and there was a big Buddhist statue out the window, and there was this orange, magenta, brilliant, pink, and most incredible sunset. And we were talking about these visions, and Rinpoche said, red appearance, it's like this. He said, pointed out the window, it's like this. So that brilliant orange, magenta, brilliant sunset like that is your whole experience, red increase, as those red drops come up from below. That dissolves, and the upper and lower winds gather at the heart in that indestructible drop, and the winds enter the drop at the heart. Okay, and what happens, it's almost like a dead faint. It's as black can be. It's called the black near attainment because you're almost at the clear light, nearly attaining the clear light. Black near attainment, black as black can be is your entire experience. If people are doing this properly, right, sometimes they pass out at this point. Like that. And then the clear light dawns. And part of you, when you're doing these visions, you want to have a little part of your mind thinking, I'm not going to miss the clear light. I must not miss the clear light. It's a reminder, constant reminder. This is a rehearsal for your death. This is a rehearsal for you to recognize those signs. Okay? Clear light again. How to describe it? Indescribable. Brilliant transparency. And then what you want to do is hold that in your mind. Single-pointed focus on that. That's where you want to engage your calm abiding, your concentration on that vision. Internal vision, not separate from your mind. It is your mind, okay? And what will happen is there could be concepts of self arising. Then you meditate on emptiness. Any concept of an inherently existent self doesn't exist at all. Does not exist at all. Use whatever training you have in emptiness meditation to meditate on it there. Great meditators can keep themselves in the clear light, sometimes for days or weeks. Body doesn't deteriorate because the consciousness has not left. Like that. You want to actualize that place, that most subtle experience of clear light consciousness. It's a great opportunity for you to advance in gain realizations. That's why the death opportunity is actually something to look forward to. But for practitioners, right? You want to be a good practitioner, do it now. Get ready now. You can do it. You can be at that level. We can say, and have people around you reminding you, look for the clear light, reminding you of the visions. Let's just do a little bit of the visions right now, just to familiarize ourselves with what we just heard. So just relax, find a good meditation posture. Again, not leaning too heavily against the back of the chair, feet flat on the floor, not crossed if you're in a chair. Lightly close your eyes and bring your mind to your breath just for a moment, just settling your mind there. So imagine you're actively dying, but let's think everything of this life is now done. I've completed everything as best as I could. Not everything is always wrapped up in a neat little package. But I've done the best I can. Time to let go. There's nothing more I can do. The form element is dissolving, and I'm experiencing a mirage-like image, and it is not separate from my mind. If you look out, imagine a highway in the heat, and it looks like there's water there. That water is all around you, that mirage. That's your total experience. It is not separate from your mind. And just think, I want to recognize this vision because I do not want to miss the clear light. As that earth element dissolves. So it may be very natural for the body to feel heavy, sinking under the earth. It's a normal process. Mirage-like image. And when you have more time, you do these more slowly, but the water element is dissolving in the body. All the fluids are drying up, which is a natural process. What appears to my consciousness is a smoke-filled vision, smoke-filled room. Blue-gray smoke is my entire experience. The fire element dissolves, digestion ceases, different sense consciousness are absorbing and dissolving, and what appears to my consciousness is a spark-like vision of fireflies in the night sky. That's my entire experience. It is not separate from my mind. And just think in a corner of your mind, I must recognize this experience because I do not want to miss the clear light. And the wind element desorbs when your exhalation may be the last. Respiration ceases. You would be declared clinically dead, but in the Tibetan system, a whole other world is going on for you. What arises to your consciousness, the internal vision, as this wind element absorbs, is the glow around a butter lamp, around a candle that is sputtering to go out. Keep your concentration there on that glow. The flickering glow of that candle about to go out. And now we come into subtle consciousness dissolving. As the winds from above the heart chakra begin to dissolve from the crown down, and there is a white appearance, like you're looking out over an empty field on a harvest moon. That's your entire experience, not separate from your mind. And then the red drops coming from the lower subtle winds, coming up from the spine, merging at the heart again, causing a red increase, causes that vision in your subtle consciousness. So your whole mind, that's your entire experience, this red increase like a brilliant sunset, not separate from your mind. And think, I must not miss the clear light as you stay focused on this vision. The upper and lower subtle winds merge in the indestructible drop at the heart, the center of the heart chakra, and the black near attainment manifests, black as black can be. And then the clear light dawns. This is your whole experience. Brilliant transparency. Keep the mind focused there. And anytime you notice a sense of yourself arising, I need to do this, I want to do this. Analyze that I if you have some understanding of emptiness. How does that I exist? You're doing this in the sense at the death process with your most subtle consciousness. Much more effective. Our gross consciousness gets in the way all the time in everyday life. Just imagine that concrete, pumped up notion of self, of I, does not exist at all. Lacks any inherent nature. Imagine the indestructible drop opens, consciousness leaves this form, and you traverse into an in-between state, looking for that next rebirth, conditions. You take rebirth, and those visions reverse. So please relax. Slowly, when you're ready, please open your eyes. So before we take a break for lunch, any questions? Yes?
When we're in the flickering state, is it one thing flickering or is everything around us like that?
It's more of it's just kind of like your mind is in this space of that flickering glow. I don't know if I can really describe it. It's
Is
not
something-
everything around you flickering. It's just that's all that's appearing. That's all that is.
Okay, something to work on.
Yeah.
And I've heard to pull on the top of the head hair. Do we exit up?
Yeah, so we're going to get into that. Can you bring that up again when we
Yes.
start to get into how do I care for somebody that's dying in the hospital and
Thank you.
if there's all these people around. But do bring that up again. That's great.
Okay.
Because you want to stimulate people's crown to attract the consciousness up to leave through an upper opening of the body. I'll just mention it now. Because that's a better rebirth. And they do say occasionally, for instance, the consciousness will leave the body and there's actually a milky fluid that comes out when the consciousness leaves. And you can see, it can come out the nose, the mouth, things like that. They say if it comes out the anus, often we're not looking for it. If it comes out the anus, it could indicate a hell rebirth. If it comes out a sexual organ, hungry ghost rebirth. If it comes out the mouth, animal rebirth. So I think it's eyes and nose and ears can indicate a human rebirth. If it comes out the crown of the head, God realm. Those are some of the teachings that I've heard. So we try to stimulate a little bit here. And people will say, don't beat yourself up if you were rubbing somebody's feet when they were dying, holding their hands. We tend to not touch the body other than stimulating the crown because it'll attract the consciousness there, like that. But again, if you didn't know, you didn't know, like that. Don't worry, don't obsess. Don't make yourself crazy because the person died when you stepped out of the hospital room to go get a cup of coffee. Then they died, and you weren't there. It could have been what they were waiting for. People are attached, and a lot of people die as soon as the person goes out to get a sandwich. They die because they're too attached. So you leave the room. There are people that consciously ask, I can't die because I'm too attached to my mother. Can you just ask her to, to go? I need to pass away. That I'll talk about some of that later. Andre.
So if it's a sudden death, very quick, same process, but it happens
Same
very,
process,
very quickly.
they happen very quickly. Same process.
All right. Yeah, I
Same
just wanted
visions.
to know that. Yeah.
Yeah. So harder to recognize if it's sudden death, like that. And at one point, we were talking to Lama Zopa Rinpoche about 9/11, the World Trade Center towers, where about 3,000 people died, I think, something like that. And it was kind of like there was some question posed about all those beings entering the bardo, together. You have your own bardo experience, but it could be a lot of confusion suddenly, very quickly, with people dying at the same time, things like that in disasters like that. But I don't really know. But I think somebody asked Rinpoche, and he said it could have been confusing of, even though do people end up in the same bardos? You have your own bardo experience, but I think it could be confusing how spirits get stuck in certain kind of experiences like that. Yes.
About the bardo, can you achieve a rebirth prior to 49 days?
Yes, you can. So based on very, very negative karma or very positive karma, you can shoot out of that 49-day period in usually increments of 7. You can certainly, or sometimes you might immediately take a great rebirth, something incredibly positive ripening, or the adverse thing, incredibly negative ripening, could put you into a negative rebirth right away, very quickly. But you have up to 49 days.
We have a question on Zoom. Carmen, you can go ahead and unmute.
Yes, hi. Thank you for your teachings.
Sure.
this question is more about reincarnation, or um, when I was 3 years old, I had a dream or a nightmare, and it haunted me for years and years as a child, because nobody had answer for my questions. I told my father about it, and it was me. Somebody visited me when I was sleeping. So there was this bright light, and then from the bright light, this man appeared. But I was a child, so I didn't have a vocabulary to put what was appearing to me. And what was appearing to me was like a monk, but more like a monk. It was like it had a cape, a black cape, and a rope around his waist. You know, I think probably from the 1400s or 1500s, probably from the Saint Inquisition times. And my question, but I used to keep calling this person a skeleton, because to me it was scary, and it wasn't a skeleton. So it took me years, like now that I'm old, to figure it out and research it, asking my father, I remember this dream, and you always never believe me, it's a nightmare. But I would say it was real. He came and he grabbed me, because I was a little girl, 3, and he grabbed me from the back, and hold me, and I could see his naked feet, on the floor, and the naked feet, and the robe around it. So yeah, and that's why I got I think from that I probably got my interest in reading about past lives. Before I was a Buddhist, I grew up a Catholic, went to Catholic schools.
Yes, what's the question? Because we're out of time for lunch.
Yeah, the question is, how could you explain a 3-year-old having never seen a monk before, and I already knew at 3 years old? So that explains to me the belief in past lives.
Yeah, that's all I would say. It's a past life experience, something coming up from past life. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. And some of us early lives, you may have had, some of you early, 2, 3 years old, early memory, have some other kind of experience. Anybody? Some other situation? I mean, that's it. And then you start forgetting. You start forgetting. Like that. I had experience at 3 years old of, in my childhood bedroom, of the whole space would open up. I had this experience, it went on repeatedly. I had this experience, must have come in from a past life. Then it disappeared. Gross level comes in, your life goes on. And then back years later, doing retreat at Laudo, this retreat center I'm going to again this summer, through meditation, then I had the same experience happen. So it must have come in from past life. I was meditating. I must have had experience, right? It's not like I'm any great meditator having experiences, but then suddenly I was like, okay, so it comes from past life. You have experiences like that. And earlier in life, you catch them a little bit more, but often children can't articulate what's happening. But when you talk to kids at that age, they have some really interesting things to tell you. Really interesting things to tell you. Yeah, it's pretty cool when you talk to a 2 or 3-year-old when they start verbalizing. And then once verbalization takes over, they start forgetting all that stuff. So let's take a break for lunch. Thank you for your great questions, everybody, and comments. And, oh, sorry. Okay, one more?
Okay,
please.
I'll try to keep it quick.
Okay,
When
sure.
I've thought about what I'd like to practice when I'm dying, I think about other practices than focusing on the visions. I think about mantra and seeing the deity and my guru, and so sometimes I think, oh my goodness, I have too many, right? So I wonder about is it better to focus on the visions? I've started thinking I would focus more on other practices.
So it's all basically a life path, meaning you're rooting your practice in guru yoga. So yoga means yoking yourself to the guru. And when I say guru, it simply means spiritual teacher or virtuous friend. Sanskrit word, that's all it is. We get a little spooked in Western culture. Guru means cults and somebody's taking over my mind. No. All the external teacher is that guru, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, all these other lamas like that. They are simply an external manifestation of the absolute guru in yourself, and they're trying to get you in touch with that ultimately highly realized inner voice, your inner wisdom and compassion. But we need reminders because we got it all gunked up in here, because all of our channels are all twisted around. Why? Because we experience anger and pride and attachment and jealousy and fear and depression and laziness and all those delusions. It's simply an imbalance in the mind, that's all. And what that does is that squeezes your subtle energy system. So you can't actualize and have a smooth sailing thing where you go to sleep at night and those visions just manifest and you're peaceful and happy. So they come out externally to a karmic level, we can see them. And they, if we get connected, they start teaching us and guiding us and instructing like that. And then what they're going to do is your practice gets rooted in something called Guru Yoga. And all your practices fit into that. And then you've got the meditations on the Lamrim included right in that practice. And then when I take tantric initiation, I build on that. So all of those visions, it's all part of the whole package that I'm dying with. I'm sailing out with all of it happening, unfolding all the time. So that's what I would recommend. And then you might have certain emphases. So that may be a lot for people, but a Guru Yoga practice can be as simple as Shakyamuni Buddha practice. There's a thin booklet, instructions, preliminary prayers, motivation, things like that. But you're visualizing an aspect of the Buddha, in this case, Shakyamuni Buddha, right? You do some mantras of his, right, with a certain visualization that creates a better mind state for you. When you want to go on to something a little bit more, Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga. Okay? I've got a page of how you get your practice established like this based on simple Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga. Beautiful Guru Yoga practice. It's simply an elaborate 7-limb prayer. And you recite some of his mantra. It's a request to the 3 main deities. Chenresig, Buddha of Infinite Compassion, Manjushri, Buddha of Infinite Wisdom, and Vajrapani, Buddha of Skillful Means or Infinite Power. And I'm just asking for a little help. Can you please help me? I want to actualize. I want my mind to... So that's another level Guru Yoga. When you want to build in on a tantric level, Lama Chopa is a more extensive Guru Yoga. And all your tantric practices fit into that. So that becomes your life's practice. We like to do those every day if you can. It takes time, I understand, but what else do you want to be spending your time on? I'm serious. I'm just getting to it at this point. We need to do this because the world is not getting better. Sorry. And this planet's going to be ending soon. You're going to go somewhere else. It's okay. We're going to continue on. But, what else better thing to spend your time on? All the other stuff's going to go away. All your, that I needed to buy that little pot and I needed that camping equipment and I needed that kind of car and all that is going away. It's not going to get you enlightened. Okay? So again, this is the stuff, and sometimes you can condense it and do it more quickly, but it's something that is at least 2 to 3 hours a day, but then that's your habit. That's what's manifesting for you when you're dying. And it makes you happy.
Focusing on what I hear you saying is focus on your practice, not necessarily, I know the visions might be part of
They're part of the practice.
Your practice, but
they're part of the practice.
But if it gets to the point where you need to really simplify
simplify,
in your death process.
Then do Tonglen meditation.
Mm-hmm. But I'm just thinking okay, never mind. Thank you. That's very helpful.
But what I would do is then, to simplify, and we will do this meditation in here, Tonglen meditation. If you're not going to get any of it together, at least have this where I want to take on others' suffering, let it reduce my self-cherishing, and offer them happiness and bliss. Like at least have your mind focused like that. If you're dying in that moment with that mindset, I think very good. So I know you just do the best you can. I understand that, like that. But you really want to think about your priorities, what's really important. And you can even get some stuff. So I know some incredibly good lay practitioners with families and everything, and they are dead set, this is going to happen, and they set their boundaries with their family. They have a meditation space, doesn't need to be elaborate. And they're doing it. Or people in retirement. How many of you are retired? How much practice are you doing every day? There's no more excuses. You're retired. It's true. No, but it's true. But I know, like, life creeps up, right? And suddenly there's this, and, so you just have to think about priorities and like that. Okay, we're going to take a break for lunch. Let's dedicate. Thank you so much for your great questions and your great energy and involvement. Let us dedicate whatever positive energy we've created from our time together to helping us really review our priorities and see what's most important, to see if, again, I'm talking about realistic adjustments. Can't throw everything out at once. Maybe just eke along a little bit and borrow half an hour of that wasteful activity. I'm going to drive that into a practice and get this going so that we can become Buddhas quickly to benefit all living beings. Thank you so much. So it is lunchtime, okay? Now, and I will take more questions about the death dissolutions. If you have other questions and you want to continue, for instance, in the back, my dear, if you have other things, we can continue after lunch and ask more questions, absolutely. So let's take a break. Because we're late, can we start back at 2:15? 2:15? Okay, wonderful. And for those of you online, 2:15, and look forward to seeing. Great to see you, Peter. I know I was picking on you last night, but it's great to have you here. I miss our morning sessions we were doing. It was so fun. You were such a trooper, and I'll see you guys after lunch. So at lunchtime, again, this is our mini retreat. Let's not drop our mind into the gutter, okay, with blah, blah, blah. Let's try to keep it again. Think about mindful eating. This could be our last meal. And try to keep if you're eating with other people, to keep it focused on what we're talking about and any questions you have on the topic. Thank you so much.